Hey folks, Nick here from Another BookTube channel. Today, talking about things I can't remember. um, the idea for this video came about because I was looking through my reading history on Goodreads, and I saw a book on there that made me go, "What?" Because I had no memory of reading it, and I kept going through the list and looked even further back, and I found a few things that I looked at and I was like, I cannot remember ever having sat down to read that book. Either I don't recognize the title or I couldn't tell you what the plot was about. Like something about the books I just is gone from my memory. So I thought it would be fun to talk about these books that I cannot remember reading at all. Um, but I don't know if this video is going to work because there's not obviously I can't talk about them because I don't remember them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what the book is called and who wrote it, and then I'm going to try to remember what it is possibly about, and then I'm going to check up what it's actually about on Storygraph or Goodreads and see how close I was. So let's see if this is a fun video or not. So the first book is "What the Hell Did I Just Read" by Jason Pargin, which is an appropriate title considering I do not remember ever having read it. So this is book 3 in the John Dies at the End series by Jason Pargin. He originally wrote them under David Wong, which is a pseudonym. He has abandoned that pseudonym because he's not Asian, and so he kind of realized after a while, that's not okay. So he's put them. I believe they're being republished under his real name now. And I remember reading John Dies at the End, the first book, and I do remember the plot of that one. And I think mostly because I've also seen the movie and they're pretty close, so I remember those. I could have included the second book in this series as well, which is "This Book Is Full of Spiders." Now that one I didn't include because I remember I enjoyed it. I remember liking it the most of the trilogy, the original trilogy. He's published a fourth book now, uh, and I remember that the threat is spiders. But beyond that, I really don't remember anything about it. Now, what the hell did I just read? I think I vaguely remember some kind of situation in this book where there were portals that would open up in random places, and the characters would go through the portals and end up somewhere else. I think. I honestly have no idea. I think I remember enjoying the book, but I don't remember actually what it was about. So let's see what it was actually about. All right. So the description is: Dave, John, and Amy recount what seems like a fairly straightforward tale of a shape-shifting creature from another dimension that is stealing children and brainwashing their parents. But it eventually becomes clear that someone is lying, and that someone is the narrators. That actually does spark a little bit of familiarity. So the dimension thing, a shapeshifter from another dimension, maybe that's what I was thinking of. Maybe there are portal stuff that is in here that I just don't remember. But yeah, stealing children and the brainwashing of the parents. Yes, that. Yeah, there's some seed of recollection there. I still though, even reading that, I couldn't tell you from A to B to see what happens here. So I want to reread this whole series because, like I said, a fourth book came out, and I would like to read it, but I don't remember 2 and 3. So I might as well just start over. So that's the first book that I do not remember at all. The second book, and this is actually 2 books, A Dirty Job and its sequel, Secondhand Souls, both by Christopher Moore. I remember I've read a handful of Christopher Moore books, and I don't remember really any of them, but I singled these ones out because the fact that I read the sequel means that I must have liked the first one enough to keep going with it, and yet I still cannot remember it. This one I have a vague idea because I saw the book cover when I was going through my list, and it struck a little bit of memory. So with Dirty Job and Secondhand Souls, Dirty Job is about a guy who becomes the new Grim Reaper. Like, something like that. I don't remember the circumstances around it. I don't remember how it affects his life, but I'm pretty sure that's the premise. And then Secondhand Souls, I think like the secondhand nature aspect. I think he like buys a secondhand like a thrift shop, like an antique store, and ooh yeah, and he gets like impressions from the antiques in the shop. But then what does he do with it? Does he find ghosts? God, I can't believe I read these books and I have no idea. All right, let's look it up. Okay, so Charlie Asher is a pretty normal guy with a normal life, married to a bright and pretty woman who actually loves him for his normalcy. They're even about to have their first child. Yes, Charlie's doing okay until people start dropping dead around him, and everywhere he goes, a dark presence whispers to him from under the streets. Charlie Asher, it seems, has been recruited for a new position as Death. It's a dirty job, but hey, somebody's got to do it. Yeah, okay, so I mean that's basically what I said. It doesn't really give me much else to go on to remember like what happens in the book. Secondhand Souls. Something really strange is happening in the city by the bay. People are dying, but their souls are not being collected. Someone or something is stealing them, and no one knows where they are going or why. But it has something to do with that big orange bridge. Death merchant Charlie Asher is just as flummoxed as everyone else. He's trapped in the body of a 14-inch tall meat, waiting for his Buddhist nun girlfriend Audrey to find him a new suitable body to play host. What? To get to the bottom of this abomination, a motley crew of heroes will band together the 7-foot-tall death merchant Minty Fresh, retired policeman turned bookseller Alphonse Rivera, the Emperor of San Francisco and his dogs Bummer and Lazarus, and Lily, the former goth girl. Now, if only they can get little Sophie to stop babbling about the coming battle for the very soul of humankind. Well, there's no mention of an antique shop in there. I honestly can't make heads or tails of the stuff that I just read there. So, oh my god, yeah, no, no recollection whatsoever. Did not, even with all of that detail, I got nothing. Oh boy. All right. Third book, or third one that I'll talk about that I don't remember at all. And this one's a little surprising because it's an author I really love. Anansi Boys by Neil Gaiman. Now, I know that this is a spin-off from American Gods about the god Anansi and his sons. And I think it's about Anansi dying and one of the sons needing to like deal with the estate or maybe like take over. When Fat Charlie's dad named something, it stuck. Like calling Fat Charlie Fat Charlie. Even now, 20 years later, Charlie Nancy can't shake that name, one of the many embarrassing gifts his father bestowed before he dropped dead on a karaoke stage and ruined Fat Charlie's life. Because Mr. Nancy left Fat Charlie things. Things like the tall, good-looking stranger who appears at Charlie's doorstep, who appears to be the brother he never knew. A brother as different from Charlie as night is from day. A brother who's going to show Charlie how to lighten up and have a lot of fun. And all of a sudden, things start getting very interesting for Fat Charlie. Okay, yeah, that's it. Yeah, I guess I was kind of right. That actually sounds really fun. I might reread that this year. That sounds like a really good time. I'm surprised I don't remember it more. All right, next up, I chose a Robert Heinlein one. Now, I say I chose one because when I saw one, I went down like the list of other Heinlein books that I had read, and I found a bunch that I did not remember at all. So I chose The Star Beast by Robert Heinlein, but I also really don't remember Job, Job, A Comedy of Justice, Assignment in Eternity, or Beyond This Horizon. Now, I think those last two are short story collections, so that's fair. But even still, like to not remember even a single story from them is really a problem. Unfortunately, I do still remember Time Enough for Love. I wish I could forget that one, but unfortunately, That's stuck in here forever, I think. But the Star Beast is, I think it's one of his juvenile novels, and I think it's about a boy who has like a pet that is a Star Beast, and he's sick, and he has to go find help to fix him. It's as good a guess as any. Let's see what the actual description is. Lummox had been the Stewart family pet for years. Though far from cuddly and rather large, it had always been obedient and docile, except, that is, for the time it had eaten the second-hand Buick. But now, all of a sudden, and without explanation, Lummox had begun chomping down on a variety of things, not least a very mean dog and a cage of virtually indestructible steel. Incredible! John Thomas and Lummox were soon in awfully hot water, and they didn't know how to get out, and neither one really understood just how bad things were or how bad the situation could get until some space voyagers appeared and turned a far from ordinary family problem into an extraordinary confrontation. Okay, so I was pretty wrong about that, my guess. And yeah, this is another one that does not spark any recollection whatsoever. Ah, man, my memory is really, really bad. See, this is where I started to fall off of Heinlein because I read a bunch of books in a row by him that didn't leave an impact on me. And so I think that's why I kind of stopped reading him. It's just because I read too many in a row that were like that. So I guess that makes sense. Yeah, I don't remember this one at all. All right, next up, Ghost Brigades by John Scalzi. John Scalzi, I read a handful of his books. I read also Lock In and Red Shirts. And I did read Old Man's War, which is the first book in this little series. It's Old Man's War, and then Ghost Brigades is the sequel. I remember Old Man's War, like, vaguely. Like, I remember the premise of it. If you had asked me if I had read the sequel to Old Man's War, I would have told you I did not know that one existed. And the fact that I read it, I read the whole thing, really took me by surprise. I cannot remember. I couldn't even venture a guess, honestly, about what Ghost Brigades could possibly be about. I'm sure it's just like all of the same old people who were put in young bodies in the first book, just like go on a new mission. Like, maybe it's because it's Ghost Brigades. Maybe it's something extra. Maybe it's like dead souls are being like put back into young bodies, like not just old people. Maybe it's actually dead people, something like that. That sounds like that could work. That could be right. Let's find out. All right. So the Ghost Brigades are the special forces of the Colonial Defense Forces, elite troops created from the DNA of the dead and turned into the perfect soldiers for the CDF's toughest operations. They're young, they're fast, they're strong, and they're totally without normal human qualms. Oh boy, it's a long description. The universe is a dangerous place for humanity. It's about to become more dangerous. 3 races that humans have clashed with before have allied to halt our expansion into space. Their linchpin, the turncoat military scientist Charles Booton, who knows the CDF's biggest military secrets. To prevail, the CDF must find out why Booton did what he did. Yeah. Okay, so I guessed right just with the title, Ghost Brigade. So that's a fun premise, but I do not remember that book at all. I don't remember any of that synopsis. Wow, yeah. Not a thing pinged in my head to imply that I've read that before. It's kind of scary, honestly, how easily I forget some of this stuff. All right, the last book I'm going to talk about is Bluebeard by Kurt Vonnegut. I love Kurt Vonnegut. I love his books, but the thing is, I love his books for the way that he writes them, not for their plots. Like, the plots of his books are secondary, maybe even tertiary. Like, it's really just they're a great avenue for him to write really funny stuff, really like wise things. Bluebeard, I'm sure it's not actually about the pirate Bluebeard. I'm sure it's metaphorical in some way. I don't know. I can't even venture a guess. Let me see what I can find. Broad humor and bitter irony collide in this fictional autobiography of Rabo Karabekian, who at age 71 wants to be left alone on his Long Island estate with a secret he has locked inside his potato barn. But then a voluptuous young widow badgers Rabo into telling his life story, and Vonnegut in turn tells us the plain, heart-hammering truth about man's careless fancy to create or destroy what he loves. That actually does ring a bell. I do, and in fact, as I read like Locked Inside His Potato Barn, I remembered what's in there. I do remember this book, and I did like it. I gotta reread it, but I did actually like this one. Yeah, that's a fun one. Hey, I remembered one. Neat. Maybe all hope is not lost. Let me know if there are any books in your life that you look back on and you think like gun to my head, I couldn't tell you a thing about it. Just something that you've completely forgotten. Let me know in the comments if you've got any of those. Make me feel better about myself, that it's not just me. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today, but now it's time to get back to reading.